Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Grandmaster Knockout. In the left corner, the one, the only Anand, and his opponent, ladies and gentlemen. So, tonight, one board, 64 squares, playing white. Anand, playing black. So, gentlemen, let the battle begin. Anand, pawn to e4. So, pawn to c6. Anand, pawn to d4. So, pawn to d5. Anand, pawn to e5. So, bishop to f5. Anand, knight to d2. So, pawn to e6. Anand, knight to b3. So, knight to d7. Anand, knight to f3. So, pawn to a6. Anand, bishop to e2. So, pawn to c5. Anand, pawn takes c5. So, bishop takes c5. Anand, knight takes c5. So, knight takes c5. Anand castles kingside. So, knight to e7. Anand, knight to d4. So, bishop to e4. Anand, bishop to e3. So, queen to c7. Anand, pawn to f4. So, knight to f5. Anand, knight takes f5. So, pawn takes f5. Anand, pawn to c3. So, rook to c8. Anand, pawn to a4. So, castles kingside. Anand, pawn to a5. So, queen to c6. Anand, rook to f2. So, pawn to h6. Anand, bishop to f1. So, knight to e6. Anand, rook to a4. So, queen to c7. Anand, bishop to b6. So, queen to e7. Anand, rook to b4. So, pawn to g5. Anand, pawn takes g5. So, pawn takes g5. Anand, pawn to g3. So, rook to c6. Anand, bishop to g2. So, knight to g7. Anand, bishop to d4. So, rook to fc8. Anand, bishop to e3. So, rook to g6. Anand, bishop to d4. So, pawn to f4. Anand, queen to e2. So, bishop takes g2. Anand, rook takes g2. So, knight to e6. And then bishop to b6. So, king to g7. Anand, queen to d3. So, pawn to d4. And then bishop takes d4. So, pawn to g4. And then pawn takes f4. So, knight takes f4. Anand, queen to f5. So, knight to h3, check. Anand, king to f1. So, rook to g8. Anand, pawn to e6, check. So, king to h6. Anand, bishop to e3, check. So, knight to g5. Anand, pawn to h4. So, king to g7. And pawn takes g5. Anand lands the knockout. So has no answer. If you loved this fight, smash that like button and subscribe. More legendary battles are coming your way. See you in the next one.